If your company has a compliance program, then your company needs compliance training. If you want your program to be a success, that training needs to be the best. Join Shawn Rogers and Tom Fox on Excellence in Training and learn just how good compliance training can be.
Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back again for another episode with Shawn Rogers. Today, we're going to take up the concept of envisioning your compliance training program. So, Shawn, first of all, welcome back.
Thank you, Tom.
Shawn, why is envisioning your training program a key to starting to build an excellent training program?
You know, sometimes I think it's good to step back and take a big picture view of what exactly you're trying to accomplish with the training program you're going to build. It reminds me of the when I quote Covey, but he said this. He said, all things are created twice. There's a mental or a first creation and a physical or a second creation to all things. Take the construction of a home, for example. You create it in every detail before you ever hammer the first nail into place. Then you reduce it to a blueprint and develop construction plans. You begin with the end in mind, and that's the end of the quote. And I really think this principle applies well to creating a compliance training program or even the compliance program in general. When it comes to training, a common mistake I've noticed is that people tend to say we need a course on a certain topic and jump right to the question of which courses we want to do and how we're going to deploy them. But I think there's some things you want to think about before you start doing that, and that's what I mean by envisioning the program. And so that's why I think this is important. Is to just take a big picture look and see, where am I trying to go with this?
So, Shawn, from that, have you been able to distill what I'm going to call, Shawn, 3 principles of a highly effective training program?
Absolutely. We sat back at GM and took a look at what we wanted to do and what we wanted the program to feel like from the perspective of the learner. And we kind of looked at some feedback we'd received about what things people didn't like or how they felt in general about the annual required training program. And we decided we wanted to focus on 3 basic foundational principles to guide our efforts. And those 3 principles are trust, respect, and accountability. And we keep going back to these 3 principles as we modify and adjust and improve our program. They really guide what we're trying to do, and we always want to step back and ask, are we following these basic principles? And so, the first one I mentioned was trust. And I think it's vital that we realize that even though these are very important courses, we sometimes do things that might show a lack of trust to our learner audience. We wanted to figure out a way to show the employees that we trust them, that they're going to take their required training seriously, and they're not going to look at it as something that they just have to do. And we're also going to trust that they won't game the system. It was a while back I read an article where someone was actually accused and investigated for having an admin take their training for them by logging in on their computer. And we're going to trust that the employees want to do the right thing and will do the right thing, and that they'll internalize the training, and that they won't, do it while they're doing other things. That's going to happen, but that they're going to realize this is something the corporation's investing in and really wants them to do, and they'll take it seriously. So that's really what I mean by trust.
Shawn, can I stop you there?
Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Because do these principles run both ways? So that is there a trust component of employees, not just to the corporation, but to actually to yourself in the overall design of the program?
I'm sorry, Tom, you broke up there for a second. I missed part of your question.
Does trust run up and down or both ways? So in addition to the trust running to employees that they'll take the program seriously or the training seriously and they won't game the system, is there a trust back that you've come to find from the corporation to the employees, or from even Shawn Rogers as the principal designer of the program? Is there some trust that employees take from the corporation?
I think there is. And I think that means that employees are going to say, the corporation has done their due diligence in deciding what it is that's important to understand when we take these courses. And that way, if they trust the corporation to be looking at the risks as a whole and trying to make the corporation responsive to the market and to the regulators and so forth, I think that when you show that you're really concerned about what the employee you will look back and say, you know what, I can understand why the corporation feels these principles are important, and I trust that it's necessary that I go through these courses. I do think trust is always a two-way street, absolutely.
Okay, so what about respect?
So respect. This is another one where if you're not careful, you can show that you disrespect the employee's time and their intellect with the courses that you offer. Seat time is critical. You've got to realize as you develop your program that these are busy people and that they have a job that they're paid to do and they were hired to do, and that taking training, especially on a topic not related to their job, be a distraction or could be perceived as a burden when they're trying to face deadlines and business pressures. And so what we wanted to do is make sure we respected their time by keeping the training requirements within a benchmarked range of between 3 to 5 hours annually for the compliance courses. And we realized, if you go more than that, then you risk training fatigue and your scrap learning rate could increase. So we want to respect their time and keep this to a minimal amount of time that they have to spend diverted away from their normal job. But there's another important element, and sometimes I get concerned that we don't respect their intelligence. And what I mean by that is that sometimes the contents of the course could be a little bit silly or trite or even cheesy. We want to make sure that we're not doing that, and that we're speaking to them on a very mature level, while at the same time remain engaging. We don't want to use gimmicks to try to engage them. We want to make sure this is a serious discussion. And then we also want to respect them that they're going to retain the knowledge that they've received either this year or in previous years, and that we're not going to assume that they forgot everything they learned last year when we deployed this year's program. We can become overly repetitious if we're not careful, and that shows a lack of respect to both their time and their intellect. So that's what I mean by respect.
If I could just follow up with a couple of points you raised, Shawn. First of all, I think General Motors would have as diverse and wide a workforce as literally any corporation in the world. From where you sit all the way across America and across the world. How do you think through gauging the level of sophistication and professionalism of your employees for their specific training? Is it risk-based? Is it based on some other metric?
It's certainly risk-based. We constantly monitor what's going on throughout the company and look for the situations and the issues that employees are facing. And, I spend a lot of time on the phone talking to people and asking them what they think about the training. And I spend some time traveling, and I always try to have a conversation. What did you like and what didn't you like about the courses? Do you remember anything in particular? And when they don't, that concerns me in another way. But with mapping out a training program, another mistake you can make is try to do it all at once. And I think if you take the long view and say, you know what, we have these risks that we've identified, we're going to address them in a very conscientious way, not in 1 year, but over a period of 2 or 3 years, maybe on a rotating basis. So these all go to the respect factor of not overloading them and respecting their intellect and time. Absolutely. I think it's so important to have a dialogue and not a one-way, a push of the training content because you think that's what they need to know. Doing the dialogue is critical. And, kind of a sidebar on that, we did some focus groups this year and some surveys to some focus groups to try to get this feedback, to try to make sure we're being respectful.
And what about accountability?
Accountability goes to both the employee and to the management. We set expectations at the start of every year that these are the courses you need to take within our deadline. We're going to hold you accountable, and we're going to give you some reminders. And then when it gets close to the deadline, we're going to start leaning on the management a little bit to make sure they're sending the right message of getting these things completed so that you don't push right up to the deadline. And by the way, if you go past the deadline, we're respectfully going to work with HR to make sure that there's some kind of a consequence for blatantly refusing to do the courses and completing those courses. We don't like to do that. When it gets down to that point, it's 1% to 2%, or maybe even less than 1% of the people that we have to really push to the completion. But we need to send a message that you're accountable both for the content and for completing the requirements, as is your manager. So we try to voice that as one of our core values with the training program.
Well, Shawn, this has just been a fascinating exploration of how to not only envision your training program, but put 3 principles in place, or the principles that you would derive appropriate for your organization. I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you, Tom. Much appreciated.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Excellence in Training. Help get the word out by rating us and leaving a review.